What if the place you call home suddenly became too dangerous for you to live in? And what if the government even told you to leave behind your school, all of your friends, your family, or even the grave of your ancestors, just because they say it's easier to move you when disaster came than to protect you? This is the choice we are debating today. As the side of the proposition, we firmly believe that a good government does not abandon its people when disasters came, but a good government protects them when disasters came, and a good government should be strengthen their communities and even build a home that is safer for them to live in. That is why this house believes that in areas that are prone to disasters, the state should prioritize disaster mitigation over the location. First, let me clarify some important definitions so that we are on the same page for today's debate. First is disaster mitigation means efforts to reduce the impact of disasters. For example, building seawalls, improving drainage systems, and educating citizens on how to survive some disasters, and creating early warnings, and even enforcing safer city planning. And second is relocation. Relocation means moving entire communities' population away from their original homes into different areas that are considered safer. And when we say the state should prioritize mitigation, we are not saying that relocation are wrong or should never happen. Of course, in some emergencies cases, relocation may sometimes be needed and it may sometimes be necessary, but however, the government main and first plan and first response should always be protecting people where they already lived in, instead of immediately moving them and forcing them to move away from the place that they already used to and build their life in. Because life is not only evolving around physical present, but the place you are living is actually the place where you build your economic and your social life. So on today's debate, our goal is simple. We don't want to protect people only physically, but we want to protect them economically and even socially, because surviving a disaster means nothing if people lose their livelihoods, their identities, and even their future afterwards. As a Prime Minister, I will bring two main arguments. First is relocation destroys livelihoods and communities. Second is disaster mitigation is more effective and sustainable in the long run. Now moving to my first argument, which is relocation destroys livelihoods and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, people do not choose and stay in disaster-prone areas for no reason. Fishermen leave the sea because that is where their income comes, and farmers live near volcanic soil because the land is fertile and it's good for their business. And traders live near rivers and ports because that is where economic activity happens. So when the government relocates these people far away, they are not just moving houses, but they are destroying all of it entirely. Imagine telling a fisherman to suddenly move away into a place far inland where there are even no sea to see. What job will he do? Imagine forcing farmers into crowded city apartments area. Where will he plant the soil? How will they survive? Most relocated communities struggle with unemployment and poverty because their skills are tied to the environment they lived in before. They originally lived in. The government often promises better pure opportunities, but in reality, many relocated citizens become economically dependent on the place, on the environment, and a lot of them experience financially or economically instability. But the damage goes beyond money. Communities are built over generations. People depend on neighbors, local markets, and social networks to survive difficult times. When relocation happens, these support systems are broken apart. And for many people, home is not just about a place to live. It's about history, it's about culture, and it's about identity. So mitigation protects people without forcing them to lose all of that. Now moving to my second argument, which is mitigation is more effective and sustainable. Opposition may try to argue that mitigation is only a temporary situation, but no, it's wrong. It's the other way. Because countries like Japan constantly faces earthquakes, yet they still continue to protect their citizens from those, and from earthquake resistant buildings and advanced warning systems. And for another example, the Netherlands. The Netherlands faces serious flood risks because much of its land lies below sea level, and yet instead they abandon the country. Instead of abandoning the country, they build sophisticated dikes and water management systems. This country shows us one important truth. Disasters cannot always be avoided, but their impacts can absolutely be reduced. And this brings me to another important point. The idea of a completely safe zone is unrealistic because in today's world, climate change affects almost everywhere, and we cannot even expect what will happen in another month, in another day, in another hour, because a place safe from floods may face droughts. A place safe from earthquakes may face wildfires or landslides. So where exactly are these perfect safe zones? On top of that, relocation itself creates new problems. The government needs huge amounts of land for relocation projects, which can lead to deforestation, land conflicts, and even tensions with existing communities. In many cases, building safer infrastructure in existing cities is far more cheaper and more practical than building a new environment and entirely new settlements from scratch. So mitigation is not just a smarter, it is a more sustainable and a more realistic way. So in conclusion, relocation is often treated as the easy answer, but in reality, it forces vulnerable people to sacrifice their life away and everything they know just because the governments fail to protect their homes. Side propositions believes that government should not run away from disaster. Instead, they should face it and fix the real problem, which is the disaster itself and the place. So, the governments should rise to the challenge and make communities stronger. Because protecting citizens does not mean moving them away from danger at the first opportunity, but it means giving them the ability to live safely with dignity and in the place where they already call home. And for all those reasons, this house should prioritize disaster mitigation over relocation. Thank you.